All right, welcome everybody. The next speaker that we have up today from the Computer Sciences Corporation is Janice Singh. Yes, it is okay to clap.
Hi, so as you mentioned, my name is Janice Singh. I work for Computer Sciences Corporation as a contractor at NASA Ames Research Center, which is in Northern California. As most of you know, the government is in a shutdown right now. So technically I'm furloughed and was supposed to go back home, but they told me I could still give this presentation as long as I did it on my own time. So okay, so like I said, I work at NASA Ames. I work at the supercomputing facility, and we have our main system is Pleiades, which is an over 11,000 node cluster. Oh, they call it supercluster. We can see how many cores we have. We do tape storage, so we deal with petabytes of data. So there's something that SGI has, which is called Data Migration Facility, DMF. So we have a parallel DMF cluster. Our home file systems are all NFS servers. We have file systems that are Lustre file systems, which means there's multiple servers for these file systems. We have something that's called the portable batch system, which is software we have because we have users from many different places. NASA supports different missions, and they all want to run their programs on the computers. And so in order for everyone to have a fair share, I mean, these are jobs that could run for days. So in order for everyone to have a fair share in the machine, that's what this system does, the portable batch system. So what we have to do is monitor all of these things. So I know a lot of other Nagios systems is things spread across different locations. Ours is all basically in one room, but there's many different things that we have to monitor. There is a website that may or may not be up right now during the shutdown that you can look at. It gives a lot more information about the different systems that we have and what we do at the facility. So why we needed visualization? I know most people using Nagios, it's a lot of automated things. Something goes wrong, they run an event handler, something goes wrong, it sends out an email, it contacts staff. Ours is a little different. We have a 24/7 help desk, and it's really, they're the ones who are keeping track of the systems, what's up, what's down, what needs to be taken care of. So what we needed was some sort of visualization for them to see in just one screen, basically, what is the state of the system. And yes, Nagios does have visualization, but it didn't quite suit our needs because it can't just be like the status of the host is all the information we have, or just is everything up, is everything down. I know this is going to sound really bad, but I've only once in the 3 years that I've been working on this seen everything green, and that's just normal. And so we can't just have one box saying is everything okay or not. Another thing is when they see a problem, they do a little bit more digging before support is actually called. So we got too many false positives just sending emails straight from Nagios. Also, the visualization is helpful for not just the 24/7, but for all the system admins to be able to see what's affected, and also management really likes visualization. So this is what the staff sees, and this, as you can see, we have just one box mainly for the Pleiades systems, but you can see we have a section for daemons, for disks. Some systems there's less things we're interested in, and the Lustre file systems, these are huge and they have their own set of things we check on them. And as you can see, you can roll over things. Here's one of the Lustre systems, all the different checks we do, and the different servers, there's different checks that they have on them. This can show you which daemons are not running, and then the file systems, it's the biggest thing is it'll tell us if they're not mounted, but also when they're filling up so that we know that ahead of time. And then this is what end users can see, or management also tends to like this chart. And it's a lot less detail, but it gives an idea of how things are. And also users are more interested in how the different missions are, how much, basically they want to know, are they getting their fair share of the machine or not. So what we use to put it together is Nagios Core. And then in Ethan's keynote, he mentioned different agents. We use NRPE and NSCA. NRPE is the Nagios Remote Plugin Executor, and NSCA is the Nagios Service Check Acceptor. DATAG is in-house software that we wrote. It is short for Data Aggregator, and I did not name that. And then it's the website is Apache and Perl, SGI bin, CGI bin that we use to put it together. The website itself is all just HTML and JavaScript. There's no real graphics library that we use. So this shows briefly the data flow. Not a graphic designer, so this is my best effort at this. So we have a firewall, so that's why data can only come out through the firewall. And so that's why we use NSCA for anything in there. We have some clusters, and for that we would have Nagios running just on one node, and they either use SSH or NRPE depending on the installation to check within that. For anything outside of the firewall, which is called the enclave, then we just go ahead and can connect through NRPE, so we use that. And basically, our in-house software hijacks the pipe file that NSCA writes to. So in order for that to work, even the Nagios that runs on the main server also sends its data through NSCA. Then we still use the Nagios web interface, so it still writes to another pipe file. And then we have the main display you saw, it's called the heads-up display. So we call it the HUD. And so it writes to a HUD buffer and then writes out to the HUD. So we use the web server that we have that creates the HUD. It also has the main Nagios server. And as I mentioned, there's the enclave. It's what's inside the firewall. So most of the compute nodes are there. And so that's why we use NSCA. And outside, we use NRPE. Basically, the plugins are using Perl. They use the Nagios plugin library. And I've noticed the ones we use using that library are far more stable. So when I got this, the systems were all running Nagios 2.10. So I've been working on, as well as maintaining everything, trying to get everything upgraded. Most of them are at least at 3.4 now. The web server, just massive. I haven't gotten to upgrading that one yet. And we're still using NSCA 2.7.2 because on one of them I put 2.9, I don't know the number, but it was 2.9 something. and there was some compatibility issue, so I figure I'll just upgrade everything at once. So within the enclave, we do have a couple clusters, and so we just take one machine as the Nagios machine, so we don't have to run Nagios on all of them, and then it uses NRPE to connect to all the other hosts. However, on Pleiades, our supercluster, the hosts on there that we monitor, they get re-imaged all the time, and so that would wipe out NRPE. And so I use check by SSH on those ones, and that is not optimal because for some reason when I upgraded to Nagios 3 on that, it just randomly would get the error could not open pipe user bin SSH. But I really mean random because it would run the command just fine. The next one it would say it, so we were constantly making it look like everything was down on the system. I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay. But it doesn't happen in 2.10. Yeah, I was wondering if that's what it was. Also, speaking of not so great performance in 2.10, there was the latency was crazy. There's tests we run every 2 minutes, and they were taking 30 minutes to run. So as a result, pulled them out to 2 separate machines. So we have 2 dedicated Nagios servers. Maybe if I go to 4 dedicated Nagios servers, I can run Nagios 3. I don't know. So we have the data aggregator because there are some things in order to create that website that just wasn't already built into Nagios. And so one of them is we have error summaries. So these are all the disks that we check on Pleiades, but just one way of saying, okay, are all of, what's the highest error on it? And I do know that if you go to they are all like in a, I just forgot what you call them, but the service groups. And so yes, I know if you look at that visually, it'll tell you how many are critical or warning or whatever, but it wasn't something that I knew of that we could leverage through any API, although I was talking to some people in the hallway before this, and it sounds like there's an API coming out. And here's an example of something it wouldn't make sense for Nagios to do. It's parsing out the data that we have. This tells of how many nodes are being used, how many are free by the types of nodes we have. That's something very specific to our site. So it's something that we needed to add on. Also, the data to build that, the output is over 404,000 characters. So NSCA isn't going to be able to send that as one one big packet. So it has to send it in smaller packets, and then we piece it back together. So also, this is something that's similar to the error groups error summary where things are in a service group. So if we click on it and we see the Nagios interface, we can see everything related to a particular Lustre file system, but there's no way I knew of to just grab that information to put it into the website. Again, I'm hoping the API will help with that. So just to explain it, it's something that we wrote. It's in Perl. It takes the pipe that NSCA uses to write in. As I mentioned, the main Nagios on the web server also then has to write to the command file, the NSCA command file. And it then writes it into a flat file called the HUD buffer. And it's just the basic information you get from NSCA. It has the timestamp, a host name, the service description, the state, and the output. And that's what it reads in to basically aggregate everything to make that display. The HUD buffer is nothing fancy. It's just a Windows style .ini file. So it has sections. So you can see, for example, the Pleiades daemons, it's in brackets. So those are the sections, and everything under it, there are keys just in a name equals value. So that's where it would tell the state and any output of the plugin. And daemons is probably a bad example because that's just going to say if it's there or not. But for something like a file system, it can tell you how full it is and other information about it. And then in every section, we have the error summary also. So this shows the flow one more time, which might make more sense now that I've explained it. And then, so the displays, we have two versions I showed you earlier. There's the internal one, and that's the one that the staff uses. And you can click on the different, like you clicked on Pleiades, it would show you all the service checks for Pleiades, or if you checked on, like clicked on disks, it would just show you the disks for Pleiades. So it still uses the Nagios web interface to get more information. We also sometimes will use it to suspend and restart notifications. For example, if we know for some of the things that do send out email, if we know it's going to go down, we can just say stop sending notifications. So we use that. The external one we call the mini HUD. It's the one I showed that the users see. And really the security that we have is if you're on the internal network, you can see the staff one. If you're not, you can't. We just do that through Apache, and then they're written in Perl. So future plans is to use a database to collect the data. And so one of the things that'll be able to do is to have historical data for graphing. And I know that Nagios does that with the performance data, but it was written, the DATAG thing was written that it takes that information, it puts other things there and uses it for other things. So I never really got to use it. And it just will eliminate the need for a flat file. So we're hoping that we can use Nagios 4 to make improvements. I would absolutely love to see an API, but like I said, I heard that there's one in the works. Another thing I get asked all the time is for Nagios to be able to just have a check run, like just click a button and make it run instead of waiting for it to be scheduled. Yeah, and we have the could not open pipe errors. And again, I think this is something, it sounds like it would be fixed in Nagios 4, but we don't run as many checks as a lot of other places do, and we're still having latency problems. Something to do error summaries, larger amounts of data in NSCA. And I actually get this one a lot, that a lot of people want to know the exact command that was run in order to get the error, and have some way to display that on the Nagios webpage. So that's what I had. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, we're going to do the Q&A right now. Just to give you guys a heads up when we do this, make sure you have the microphone because we are recording this. And we want to make sure everybody's going to be able to hear. Any questions? Yes, here we go.
Well, I have a couple of questions actually. The first is, have you tried Nagios 4 at all?
I did on one system, and it created so many processes, and then I wasn't able to go back to it.
Okay. The second question is, when you see the latency issues, do you use NSCA as a what's it called? The obsessive service
Yes.
OCSP commands? Okay. In Nagios 3, that's when you run the OCSP command, it stalls all checks. So the OCSP and OCHP commands will actually cause you to get really, really bad latency. You would be better off caching them somehow and then sending them some other way. So that's just a heads up for you.
Okay.
I would love to talk more afterwards.
Sure.
I can give you some hints.
Okay, great.
Any additional questions?
Technology sometimes breaks. So instead of using NSEA to send passive checks, you could try using something like NRDP, which overcomes some of the limitations that NSEA has in terms of data packet length.
Okay.
So you could check that out. But just the fact that you moved from Nagios Core 2 to 3 is a huge improvement. I know you still have one instance on 2 that's really really slow compared to what's currently now out there with 4, but even in comparison to into Core 3, if you can make that upgrade to Core 3, that'll still help immensely, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, how about a nice big round of applause one more time for Janice Singh, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.